How's it going, everyone? And as always, welcome back to Continues to Tick. So friends, I ask you, is it harder to start or harder to continue? After all, I've said it before, and every part of me still believes this blueprint. That is, that consistency leads to progress, and progress leads to results. And the easiest example to see this in, currently, can surely be in the ways of which, for example, I'm building up a dividend portfolio here, over time. I mean, as I've shown, you start by investing consistently over time, setting a frequency that works for you. And as long as you invest in quality dividend-paying holdings, well, you can expect a certain positive outcome. And that's the start. Don't try to fix it along the way if it isn't broken. And there you have it. You've found a path with the dividend investing strategy. Just give it time. The time that it needs to mature into something special. But here we are now, in that time portion, the wild card piece of the equation. And with it comes that mindful moment of continuance, the moment when the excitement has finally worn off and you are now far from the starting line, but still even further away from the finish line. You're fully in it now, the road is quiet, and you're really beginning to realize that yes, the journey is indeed long. It really only starts to resonate over time, and that's when you realize, wow, I knew this was a process. Now all I do is wait actively for the result, for which many of us is a solid retirement, maybe even an early retirement. And the consistency required to obtain this begins to truly test our focus, test our patience, test our desires each and every few days, if not daily. This latter section here for me has become possibly the hardest part, the continue portion, the passing of time. You see, in the realm of goal setting, there comes that moment of inaction to action. For example, when your car stalls at an intersection and you need to push it off to the side of the road. Getting the car to move at first takes the greatest effort, which is quite similar to starting a goal. I tend to view it as starting is always the first hardest part. It has to be. It should be. There's nothing actually being accomplished before we start something, just like there's nothing to be failed at if we never begin. The line of inaction to action is a fine line, but can be quite daunting, as the stakes can be quite high, as failure is easy to be feared. No one plans to fail, but we will, and we do. It's normal, and it's especially difficult to begin something, especially if it's something we're hesitant, we can't maintain, take on, or not fully confident we can accomplish. So therefore starting, just like pushing a stalled car on the road, takes the most energy, takes the most time thinking about it. It's easily the most overwhelming part, as it often is hard to not want to overanalyze and choose the best course of action before we even begin. But by being this way, we often get in our own way. Before we know it, we forget about the goal entirely, lose interest in the thought, go on to something else, and we ultimately never do it. It's also important to note a barrier to entry for a task can also be quite high between inaction and action. But fortunately, the barrier to start dividend investing is not one of those. But to put it more simply, the starting phase is so difficult because we're at a point where it's just easier not to do than to do. We're also already not doing, and change is hard. You can't fail if you don't try, or even further still, you can't fail more. Can you? My point is, I always used to see the starting point as the hardest part of goal setting, and for good reason. I always used to believe that the continuance phase, once started, would automatically be the easiest part, but that doesn't always appear to be the case. The continuance or maintenance phase can be just as challenging, especially the more mindful you become. The more mindful you are, the more you begin to make an active effort every day to choose to continue, despite whatever the daily emotions may be opposing you to do. The more mindful you are, the harder it is. but primarily because you're operating less and less on autopilot. Emotions don't need to be ignored. They just need to be processed. And that takes active work, which makes it hard. You see, operating through life on autopilot is easier in the sense that it's less work and therefore can make the continuance phase easier as well, as opposed to starting. At least until you get to a point when you can't even recognize why you're not content. This is why I've begun to see why dividend investing goes quite similarly with personal growth. Both take time, and your dividend investing strategy can be solid, but if your weak points in life are sending red signals and you're not in a place in life to truly see them, you're going to likely mistake positive points for flaws that don't need to be fixed, such as rushing the investing process, switching investment strategies when you really don't need to. Again, the only person we can control is ourselves. We can't control Uncle Sam. We can't control the markets. We can't control the externals of life. But we can control our emotions. We can control how we react and respond. And we can control how we navigate this life, despite the externals. As life goes on, time will tell us all what we each did right and what we each did wrong. Time in that sense is undefeated. And the only way I can currently see to minimize what we do wrong in this life is to try to be the best version of ourselves and operate from a point of good daily habits. And shoot, it's so hard. If truly though, you want to be financially successful, operate within good healthy financial habits. Likewise for health, relationships, inner peace. Don't be scared of growth. Don't be scared of your flaws. Find them. Work with them, overcome them. I will say this, it's harder at times to work on the continuance of building up ourselves than starting something new to mask it. But if truly consistency leads to progress, progress leads to results, why not set healthy, consistent habits in order to set a healthy, stable, and bulletproof foundation? To see if in return we can make and obtain that successful future we so desire in all avenues of our life, not just finances. No one ever says I want to be rich, but poor in relationships. No one ever says I want to be rich, but overweight and unhealthy. No one ever says I want to be rich, but unhappy in the silent moments, deepest in the middle of the night. Let's keep going. And well, that was an interesting mental ride. How about a small pause for a gentle reminder to like the video and subscribe, as this journey won't be stopping anytime soon. And of course, for a mental mind cleanser, how about a picture of a huge monstera plant, in hopes that we're all taking care of our plants so far this spring. And here we are currently in the Jesse's cash flow portfolio, and now what appears to be the last week of April, sitting currently at $54,519.07. And this is with the total return, if we zoom in here just a bit, of 34.67%, which equates to a total gain of the portfolio of $7,826.99. And for market gain alone, we're at $6,464.33. And for earned dividends, progress continues, now at $1,362.66. And this is on the all-time earned dividends. And I will say, it almost seemed like we were just starting to take a turn. The markets are just really sensitive. Looking at this last week's performance, and I'll zoom out to the 1 month view here in a second just for you to see it. But at least in my portfolio, we had a loss of 0.63%, which equated to a loss of $344.02. But now zooming out to the 1 month view, this is where we've been lately. We were finally starting to go back up. And then just over these last couple days, over this last week, we just hit a dip again. But as it stands, we'll see how this next week plays out. But otherwise, nothing else changes. We continue to move forward and continue with our systematic game plan. But if you happen to be new here, I'll just mention it here down below, going back to my all-time charts. If you were curious and you wanted to see what I was holding in any of my sectors here, there's a link in my description box down below. You can just click on it, and in there you can click on real estate, for example. And you can see I'm holding O, AMT, DLR, AVB, Essex. And you can do that for every single one of my sectors if you're curious. Because I know on my videos I don't really go over these unless it's like a milestone video. If it's a milestone video, then we will surely go more in depth to the portfolio. But I guess otherwise, we remain fairly philosophical, which hopefully you can enjoy. It's where my mind wanders. But in speaking of mind wandering, here we are now finally with some direction. On April 18th, with our first dividend payout for this last week, on this last week's performance, getting paid by $6.17, and then also on the same day, getting paid by Sempra Energy, $5.31, and also Avalon Bay, $8.37. And then on April 19th, we actually had a snowball on this day of $27.66. And then on the next day, April 20th, we had our $500 deposit, which is our systematic game plan. I'm 26 years old. I work as a registered nurse, so I am fortunate enough to have a pretty good, stable, and solid income. And because of that, I am trying to take advantage and funnel in as much funds as I can, also managing a good quality of life and document it here over time. But now moving on to the next day on April 21st, we got $1.66 from Oracle, and then $7.02 from Medtronic on April 22nd. And so that's going to be it for this week's video. The journey continues, and it does not stop. The systematic game plan of building up this dividend portfolio, while simultaneously trying to engage in personal growth in all avenues. We are now in the final week of April, which is crazy to imagine, as it's going to be May next week. But that is time. That is life. It does not stop. You can't stand in the way of life and turn around and try to halt it, like stopping a moving car. Impossible. So because of that, it's important to plan ahead. Understand that time will pass regardless. So utilize it like a tool if you can. And by creating a dividend portfolio, it definitely does utilize time, the aspect of time, for a successful portfolio, which is what hopefully we'll see here over time. But at least so far, so good. We've definitely made a notable jump since the beginning. But enough of this ramble out the way. We've made it through 7 days, and because of that, there's a high chance we'll make it through another 7. And I'll see you then, next Monday. As always, take care.